Now, what the patch is doing is measurable, and the patch is not on trial. The patches work. If someone thinks they don't work, they're not thinking right. They have not scrutinized and assessed the science properly. The patches definitely work. In fact, we can say this about the X39 rejuvenating patch. We can say that every 6 weeks you wear that patch, reverse ages your heart, your cardiovascular system, your heart and blood vessels by 8 weeks. That's worth repeating. When I first heard that, I thought, there's no way this is possible. If it were possible, everybody in the world would want this and know about it. And, everybody in the world should know about it, and we should be sharing it. But every 6 weeks you wear that X39 activation patch is reversing the age of your heart and blood vessels by 8 weeks. But how does it work? Well, we all have infrared heat energy coming off our bodies. That's the way we can see each other. Even if it's pitch dark, you can have infrared glasses and see people or animals because we're giving off this heat. The patch is designed to take the heat from your body, the infrared, and when it hits the patch media, which is simply a combination of organic amino acids in a microcrystalline formation, that when infrared hits it, it makes a very specific wavelength of light. That light is reflected back into your body, and that's what does what the patch accomplishes. It activates a signaling molecule. In the case of the X39, it's something called GHK copper peptide, which is well known and researched for decades to enhance stem cell number and activity. So that's kind of the science. It sounds like a little of the future and kind of like something very sophisticated. But the truth is, it's not. It's very simple. It's as ancient and simple as the light therapy every one of us have used every day of our life. When the sun hits our skin, it makes vitamin D. It causes the skin, the body makes vitamin D. That's called in science photobiomodulation. Photo, light, bio, the body, modulation, changing the body with light. That's light therapy. And your body's been doing that your whole life, but not doing it as efficiently as you grow older. We can measure your biological age. Your chronological age is the number of candles you have on your birthday cake. But your biological age is different. And most people, they're either younger or older than their stated age. But we can measure that, biologically age you, put this patch on you, and 6 months down the road, measure again and see what it's done, see that it's decreased your biological age. And we know lots of people who have done that and had tremendous results with that. There's lots of studies showing that. So we've got something that is safe, it's effective, and finally, it's affordable. Because traditional stem cell therapy, I don't know if you know this, but it can cost $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, and you have to go out of the country to get certain kinds of stem cell, and then it's very limited in how you can use it. This technology literally allows your body to go to work on whatever it needs. Every tissue and organ in your body, every system can be and is supported by this X39 rejuvenating patch. Now, so we heard about it. We heard about some people having tremendous success and testimonies with it, but it didn't make sense to me. And so I actually went and studied it to prove to her that there was no science to it, and to prove to her that it didn't make sense to be using this. And when I did that, I looked into the science. I found out, first of all, that there was science, which is very rare to find in a natural alternative like this. And it's completely natural, literally side effect free. It's just enhancing what your own body has been doing and continues to do in a more youthful way. And companies don't usually have studies. If they do have studies, they may have 10 studies that they did, and 9 of them didn't work and 1 of them did. And you hear about that when you don't hear the other 9. That's not good science. What I found with Lifewave was that these studies were independent. That means Lifewave didn't do all these studies. It was other people, universities and independents. They were double-blind, placebo-controlled. That means the people giving the testing didn't know if they were given the real thing or the control group, and the people receiving didn't know. And then most importantly, some of the studies were peer reviewed. What does that mean? That means you do your study, then you turn it to your equally qualified scientific colleagues and say, what's wrong with my study? Show me what's wrong with it. So we have the highest level of scrutiny for these studies, and there's over 80 clinical studies on this brand new technology. And it's truly the reverse aging science of the future. We can say that unequivocally. We can prove that clinically. And so when I found that out, I thought, wow, there's something really here. And my first concern was, is it safe? And when I studied the patch, I found out a term called non-transdermal. What does that mean? Well, you may be familiar with transdermal patches, like a estrogen patch, a nicotine smoker's patch. That's where the chemical is in the patch. You put it on your body, it goes through the skin, goes in the body, and does its work. This is a non-transdermal patch. In other words, no chemicals are being passed from the patch into your body. So, well, then the question becomes, how does it work if nothing's going in my body? And if you haven't seen a patch, it's about the size of a quarter here. I had one here a minute ago. I don't see it, but it's about the size of a quarter. You peel the back off and you put it, in the case of the X39 stem cell activating patch, on C7, the back of your neck. If you feel down the back of your head, down your neck to the base of your neck where the bigger bump is there, that's around cervical vertebrae 7, and you wear it 12 hours on for activation, and then you take it off and discard it for 12 hours not because it wouldn't be safe to wear it longer, but you want a full benefit when you put that next patch on. 12 hours later, your body doesn't get used to it or acclimate to it. So that's how the patch is used. Now, there's a couple of things I want everyone on this Zoom tonight to remember. For sure, these are take-home things that you just need to memorize, and I may repeat them a couple times because I want you to really grasp hold of it. First of all, what is a stem cell? You've heard it. You've heard the term. It's a positive thing. People get excited about it. It's something to do with health and healing. But what really is it? A stem cell is simply this. It's a cell in your body that's able to become any kind of cell your body needs. If you need help in the cardiovascular area, it can become a heart muscle cell or an endothelial cell lining the blood vessels. If you need help in your brain, it can become a neuron. If you need help in the skin, it can become a skin cell or a bone cell or whatever it might be. And don't we want cells that can help our bodies to rejuvenate? And that's happening all of our lives. It has been happening all of our lives. In fact, when the sperm and egg met to make your very first cell, that was you. That's all the DNA you'll ever have. And every cell of your 100 trillion cells that you have now contains all of that DNA, the exact same one as that first cell. In the beginning, you were one cell, then it divided into 2, 4, 8, 16. Eventually, some of those cells, those were all stem cells. Some of those became bones, some became skin, some became muscles and nerves and liver and heart and other organs. But your body always retains a number of what we call primitive, undifferentiated stem cells. And remember what a stem cell is? A cell that can become anything your body needs. So your body wants to keep those in reserve for repair and rejuvenation. So that's the first thing I want you to remember. What is a stem cell? Remember what it is? It's a cell that can become anything your body needs, right? The second fact that's so important, if you just get people to understand these two things, it'll go a long ways to capture their interest in looking further into this and finding out what a life changer it is. That is the fact that by the time you're 35, you have lost about 50% of your stem cell activity. By the time you're 65, you've lost 90%. Wow, that's significant. That's a lot. And think about that. your body doesn't repair like it used to. If you're, getting up there in mature years, you realize that. But when you're young, say you're 10 years old, you're loaded with stem cells. When a 10-year-old falls off a bike, they don't break a bone. They hop back up. They don't have chronic low back problems, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, usually. If they cut their skin 3 days later, you can't even see where the cut was because they're loaded with stem cells. This rejuvenating, regenerating process is constantly going on. But as you get older, you lose it, and you lose it quite quickly. So that's the other thing to remember. By the time you're 35, you've lost 50%. By the time you're 65, you've lost 90% of your stem cell activity. What can you do about that? Well, traditional stem cell therapy, which I was a big fan of as an MD, I loved it. It's been done for years. They take your own worn out stem cells and concentrate them and then put them back in your body at the place where you need help. It's obviously limited. It's got to be things where it's very a target area, like a joint, maybe hips or knees or the spine. You can't use it for systemic issues and things like that, but it's very effective. When you put a concentration of those stem cells in there, it starts rejuvenating and repairing, which I love, because the approach of stem cells is to correct the cause of the problem, not just cover the symptoms. See, we've gotten really good in traditional medicine at covering symptoms, and there's nothing wrong with covering symptoms. However, much of the time when you take a pharmaceutical, for example, it not only ignores the cause of the problem, but in many cases makes the cause of the problem worse. So that's why I believe long-term poisoning yourself to health is not the best approach to take. And as I've said, I'm not making a condemnation on pharmaceuticals. They can be life-saving and life-changing, but there are better ways to do it. The best way to get and stay healthy is support your body's ability to do that. But I had no idea how important light therapy would end up being in my life and in my health and in your life and your health with these patches, how this technology worked. So it is wearable light therapy. It's not doing anything that the sun couldn't even do. When you say, well, then, all right, I'll just sit in the sun. Well, no, you might have to sit in the sun for 1,000 hours to get what you can get for wearing a patch for 12 hours, because it's targeting that wavelength of light, very specific targeting molecule, the GHK copper peptide. Plus, you don't want to spend 1,000 hours in the sun. There's some other things that aren't so good that you could overdo there, and it just doesn't make sense time-wise. So this is the reverse aging science of the future. It is completely safe, non-transdermal, no chemicals involved. You know how refreshing that is to me as a physician? I don't even have to ask people, what pharmaceuticals are you taking? What over-the-counter medications, vitamins, minerals, herbs, other modalities, because there's literally no interference with those things. That is refreshing. I don't know of any other natural modality where you can just allow the modality to work and not be worried about interactions there. And by the way, it is smart technology. What do I mean by that? Well, the way your body is set up, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, and stem cells prioritize. They go where the action is. They go where they're needed most and work on that. Then they go on to correct another thing. Then they go on to correct another thing. So we know that that's how it works. And of course, we have over 80 clinical studies specifically on this technology that was invented. The technology was invented, the science of photobiomodulation with this non-transdermal patch by David Schmidt, who has a global patent on this X39 stem cell activating patch, a 20-year global patent. We're about 3 years in on that. And they don't give those away unless there's rock solid science. So it's safe, it is effective, and it's smart technology. It goes in and works on the priority thing first, and then the next thing, and then the next thing. And so people always ask me, okay, what do I expect when I start patching? He told me I'm going to wear it 12 hours on, take it off, throw it away, wait 12 hours, put another patch on. So you get 30 patches in what we call a sleeve, and it's a month's worth. Well, the biggest challenge with patching that I know of is the fact that I can't say on a given individual basis when someone will feel something or have something significant enough to feel. Not that you have to feel things. I mean, you can't feel your blood pressure or your hair growing or the condition of your liver or whatever, but those things are happening in your body. But we do have a lot of science that shows about 3 to 6 weeks, 80 to 90% of people will notice something significant when they're patching. What I've heard mostly, both almost universally, I've heard that sleeping better. When people start patching with the rejuvenating cell patch, the X39, they sleep better. They have more energy consistently. They have a general sense of well-being. Wound healing may be improved, especially GI tract, skin things, because there's big turnover there. And I think that happens, the tissue's turning over more quickly. So a lot of times people notice something there. They might notice the fine lines and wrinkles, improvement for you ladies and even your guys too. The patches were designed to be used 1 month for every decade of life. So I'm 67. So I've lived 6 decades. I'm living in my 7th. What that means is I need to patch for 7 months before I even make a decision if they're doing something for me. Now, most people, it doesn't take that long. We said 3 to 6 weeks. We love it when someone's a one-patch wonder. In the first week or day, even sometimes when they put a patch on, it's life-changing and they know it. But that's very rare, and it's very rare to go 1 month for every decade that you've lived. Most people are in that 3 to 6 week range, but we can't predict it. So the challenge is keeping people consistently patching. I'm asked, how long do you wear the patches? And we said they're designed, David Schmidt, the inventor, designed them to be worn 1 month for every decade of life. So then when you've worn them 1 month for every decade you've lived, are you done patching? Well, you can be. If you won't lose the gains that you've gotten, and you'll have gotten many gains, but you go back to aging the way you did before. That's why when I went past my 7th month, I was getting such tremendous results that I kept wearing the patch, and I got some of my best results from month 9 to 12. And I'm not 90 to 120 years old, but I feel like I'm 40 years old again. Some of the things that I could not do, I can do now. When I started, and I think this is very common with people, so be aware of it. I patched for 5 weeks, and I looked at Susan and I said, Susan, I don't think this patch is doing I don't feel anything. And she said to me, well, you're not getting up 2 or 3 times a night to use the restroom like you have been and waking me up. And then I thought, and I realized, wow, because sometimes you don't miss things like that. And like if pain goes away, you don't miss that, and you forget about that. That's why we love you to fill out the health tracker when you start so you can monitor some of those things. So that was very significant for me. But what really made a difference was my recovery after exercise. I'm very regimented about what I do when I exercise. I know how often I can do it, how long it takes to recovery. And I wasn't getting tired. I did my whole exercise thing and I wasn't tired. So I went from 3 days a week to 5 days a week to 7 days a week. Then I doubled what I was doing. And what I was doing was pretty extreme. I could have never done that in the natural without this support of these patches. And it was just phenomenal to me. Then I had like a soreness in the shoulder where I couldn't lay at night, and that went away. One time, then I also threw my back out, which every now and then that would happen to me, and I knew I'd have 7 to 10 days. I was literally, the first day I crawled from the bedroom to the kitchen, and I knew I had 7 to 10 days ahead of me of just pain and moving like an old man, and holding on to chairs and things. And Susan says, why don't you try the Ice Wave? Well, I didn't mention that patch yet, but here's what happened. Ice Wave is our patching system for pain. Now, X39 and Eon that we're going to talk about here used together are very good in pain management, and they address the cause of the pain specifically. Ice Wave is a little different kind of patch in that it does not necessarily deal with the cause of the pain, although it can, but it acts immediately. it has to do with pain signaling in the body. That's why it's a two-patch system. Like a battery has positive and negative. Pain signaling in your body is sent to your brain. And when you get these two patches from the IceWave system placed properly, and there's a set way to do that, it's immediate. And it's very remarkable. And I didn't even think of using that. I've never had any. And Susan said, why don't we try an IceWave? And I thought, oh, okay. And she put them on me. And about 5 minutes later, I went to move and I thought I was going to have to, the pain was completely gone.
Wow.
So whenever we talk, if we're at a meeting or something, we ask people, do you have pain right now? And that's something that gives immediate results, although you're not addressing necessarily the cause of the problem or correcting it. It's good to be out of pain. And people that are in pain are using something for that pain. God forbid they're using Oxycontin and opioids and Celebrex and all those things with horrendous side effects. But even the non-steroidal inflammatories, the aspirin, ibuprofen, Tylenol, those things, they are hard on your liver and your kidneys. They can cause GI bleeding. And no one should be on that long term. But what do you do if you've got pain? Well, now there's a solution, the IceWave patching system. So when people ask me, how do I get started? What should I do? And then there's always questions about what about for this situation or that situation. I just about 100% of the time start people with what you already referred to as the dynamic duo, two patches. Certainly the X39 activation regeneration patch that we've been talking about. And then the Eon patch. The Eon patch is an anti-inflammatory patch, which before the X39 was released, it was the number one selling patch, and for good reason. It balances inflammation. And inflammation is a cause or promoter of every kind of disease, whether it be even the big ones, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, they're all enhanced or caused in some cases by inflammation, by out of control inflammation. So to bring that into balance is always a good idea anyway. However, it's extremely important when you're waking up stem cells, which you will be doing when you're putting that X39 activation patch on. You're going to be signaling that GHK copper peptide, which is shown to activate these regenerating cells. When you do that, as I said, this is smart technology, and the regenerating cells go to where the action is. Where the action is where the inflammation is. So if you have a lot of inflammation, some or all of these regenerating cells are going to be used up focusing on that, and they don't have time or a number to work on the other things. So I find people get better, more sustainable, and quicker, certainly, results when they use the X39 on C7, and then we recommend putting the Eon patch, AEON, the anti-inflammatory patch, an inch below your belly button, simply because that's where the clinical studies were done in that location. And the patches will work anywhere on your body, but I stick with the clinical studies where they were done, with the exception of this Eon patch, because I've just had so many people have success when they put the Eon patch instead of an inch below their belly button, they put it right where they're having a problem, whether it be pain in a joint or somewhere, or the thyroid, or whatever it might be. They put that patch there, and we've had tremendous success. So that's about as complicated as I like to get at first, because it's a lot for people to understand, and it's enough to wear that X39 12 hours on, 12 hours off there. The Eon patch, though, I'm extremely excited about that patch, not only because it helps the X39 work quicker and better, but because it also balances something called your parasympathetic nervous system. You basically have an autonomic nervous system, which is two parts. Autonomic means automatic nervous system. The two parts are the sympathetic, fight or flight, get up and go, adrenaline, and you need that. And the parasympathetic, rest and restoration healing part. You need that even more, I'd say. It's found that the Eon patch supports that parasympathetic rest and restoration nervous system, the parasympathetic. So it's going to be effective for things like anxiety. So, and that patch can be used day or night. I always recommend the 39 is worn during the day because eventually you're going to get energy from the X39 and you don't want energy while you're sleeping. So that's a day patch. But Eon can be worn day or night. And I decide that by asking people if you have anxiety, do you have more during the day or more during the night? Wherever they do, that's when I wear that patch. This smart technology takes care of all the questions. You don't have to figure out what's going on. You don't have to uh, worry about it. The body is fearfully and wonderfully made. Just patch consistently. That's your part. My story, I'm an MD. I was trained in traditional medicine, but for 40 years, I have done natural alternatives, which is sort of unusual for an MD. And I don't use pharmaceuticals, but I don't make a wholesale condemnation on pharmaceuticals. They can be life saving. If you break your arm or have a heart attack, please don't come to me for natural alternatives. Get to the emergency room. We have some great intensive care and acute care, the best in the world. But my personal opinion is poisoning yourself to health is not the best approach in the long run. I believe there are natural things that we can do. And you mentioned that I'm the author of 5 different books, and this one here is called Do This and Live Healthy. And it's based really on 10 principles that I always teach when I'm speaking somewhere. And they are simple things for your health, but they're foundational things that often, if we cover these bases, we don't have to use what I call poisons with a desirable side effect, which is what pharmaceuticals are. But you may have to use them for a time in a season. They can be life saving and life changing. But my goal was always with people to keep them from using pharmaceuticals when they did have to use them, to help them as quickly as they can find natural alternatives. So that's what I was doing for 40 years before Lifewave came along. I was not the guy who was an early adopter with this. It was Susan. She reminds me of that often. She wanted to started patching. And I said, Susan, I'm not going to tell people to put a sticker on their neck and it'll cure them of whatever problem they might be having. I was born at night, but not last night. I didn't believe there was any science in it. I didn't understand it. It didn't make sense. So please be patient with people. If you share with someone and they have that reaction, maybe they're like me. They don't know what they don't know. None of us, we don't know what we don't know, right? We're in a learning process. We're all perpetual students, if we're honest.